Welcome to this session about Drupal Decoupled plus GatsbyJS. We want to thank you all for coming. We want to thank you the organization to host us. In this session, we're going to see how easy it is to integrate Drupal with GatsbyJS. And we're going to show a little demo about how to build basic blog websites with these two technologies. So, again, we want to thank you, the Asociación Española de Drupal, for this event. And especially want to thank you, the Drupal Meetup Malaga group that helped us and supported us to actually make this session. So who we are? I am Marco, and this is Giuseppe, Pepe. We are full stack developers and Drupal specialists. We work for SerWeb Solutions. That is a company that has born as a Drupal agency. And well, on these days, we went much further than just Drupal. So it's a company that mainly is focused on build web tools for data analysis, GIS, and also with Drupal. And that works mainly for university, researchers, and organization, and especially with the European Commission. So let's go through the fun part. So decoupled. On the previous session, we see also a decoupled topic that was a little bit different from us, but it was really nice because it introduced the GraphQL concept. So we are not gonna talk much about the GraphQL, but let's see first of all what's Drupal decoupled. And well, a good definition is that Drupal decoupled is the use of Drupal as a content service for consumption by other applications. That basically means that we can use Drupal as a service for third-party applications. There are various ways to achieve decoupled in Drupal. The main ones are fully decoupled and progressive decoupled. Fully decoupled is when actually there is a complete separation between Drupal and the third-party application. So let's say between the backend and the front end. And this is the case that we are going to show today with GatsbyJS. And then there is progressive decoupled. That is the case that we have seen in the previous session, where actually Drupal is used as a middleware to inject JavaScript framework into Twig. So as I said, in this session, we're going to see a fully decoupled solutions that is possible thank you to the JSON API module. We want to just thank you all the people that actually worked on JSON API to bring it into the core from the last version. And later we're going to see how to use it. Okay? And now we are going to introduce a little bit GatsbyJS before the actual demo.
Okay, so now we have the data. We know how Drupal takes out the data through JSON API. And then we need front end, some tool to display, to show our data and to turn that into web pages. So we have our solution. The solution we chose is GatsbyJS. GatsbyJS is a free and open source developer framework. It's based on React and generates static instances of websites and apps. Why static websites? Static websites. We're not coming back to the 90s. We do it just because we can. Because now we have tools that allow us to generate static websites, and the advantages of a static website are a lot. something like static site generators. They pre-generate all the pages of the website, so we skip all the part of the generation of the page that we know is something that happens every time with a dynamic generated page. We have to wait, even if it's a small lapse of time, is some time that we spend. So we skip the live database querying, and we don't have to go through the template engine. And then the performance goes up and the cost goes down, because we don't have to maintain a complex web server, and we just need some basic setup to serve HTML and CSS files. How Gatsby works. The basic working way of Gatsby is we have some data. We can get the data from CMS, Drupal in our example, or from markdown file, so from local file system, or from APIs, or like JSON files, different sources. Give the data to Gatsby. It processes through GraphQL, and we are going to talk a little bit about GraphQL now, but it's basically a layer data, a data layer to convert the data in a way that Gatsby can render it later. And through the Gatsby application is basically a React application. It converts all this data flow into HTML and CSS files, and it's still a React app. And then we only need to generate the static files and deploy them on a platform that it may be everything like a Netlify, GitHub Pages, or whatever, basic setup. GraphQL, as I was saying before, is an open source data query and manipulation language for APIs, and a runtime for fulfilling queries with existing data. It means we can manipulate, receive data from a source, manipulate them, and pass them to our application. GatsbyJS, it's a new technology, and as we said, it's based mainly on React and GraphQL. Do we need to know React and GraphQL to use it? Actually, it's a good thing if we already know something about React and GraphQL. But if we don't, it's a good chance to learn them, because Gatsby makes it really easy to understand. So through little example and little experiments, it's a good way to experiment with them and know and start to learn these new technologies. Por supuesto, yeah. We are not Gatsby expert, I want to remark this, but we are in the way of turning it, because it's a new technology, we are experimenting a lot with it, we're studying it, we are doing like tests and discovering the possibilities. So this is one of the things that we have discovered so far, but come on, we didn't invent it, so we are in the process. That's your turn, huh?
So, let's see in practice how to integrate Drupal with GatsbyJS. What we need? We need to build a Drupal website, so a Drupal server. Then we're gonna build the Gatsby website. Then we are gonna fetch the content and the data from Drupal to GatsbyJS. And last of all, we are gonna actually build and deploy the Gatsby website. Okay? So let's start with the Drupal part. What do we need in the Drupal part? We need actually just a basic Drupal installation running, really basics, and we need just to enable the JSON API module that now is in core. Optionally, we can also download and enable the JSON API extras module that gives us a user interface to customize and configure a little bit the JSON API, but this is optionally, again. And once all of this is done, we have just to check that our Drupal is working with JSON API. We are not going to show in practice the Drupal part because it's so simple that I guess it's not really interesting to just install Drupal and enable our modules. But once everything is set up, you just go to the URL you can see there on your website /JSON API just to check that everything is working well. If everything is working well, you are going to see something like this. Okay? If you see a JSON document like this on this endpoint, it means that you are already set it up to start with the building of the Gatsby websites. We are going to use for this demo the default content type article. Okay, so to replace this demo, you don't need to set up anything apart what I just mentioned on Drupal, and it's going to work with the article content type. Okay, and the fields that are already included for default. Okay, so to build a Gatsby website, well, first of all, to start to develop with a Gatsby website, we need some requirements to have on our laptop, on our computer, to actually work on it. What do we need? We need Node.js installed on our computer. We need npm, Node Package Manager, and we need Git. That actually is going to use to download the Gatsby starter to start to develop with it. Once we have all of this, we have to install the Gatsby CLI. That is the tool that's going to help us to actually set up the Gatsby starter and to manage it during the development. So once we are done with all of this, we can actually start to develop our Gatsby websites.
Okay, to create the Gatsby project, it's as easy as once we have the Gatsby CLI package, we just launch the command Gatsby new and the name of our project, in this case is Drupal Gatsby. It's gonna do all the stuff, all the magic to create the project. Then we enter the project, we enter the directory of the project, and then we give this command, Gatsby develop. Gatsby develop starts a hot reloading development server on the localhost 8000 port. And if there is more instances of Gatsby, it starts adding one number after the other. But in the beginning, on this URL, we have our starting page of Gatsby that looks like this. This is the first page we see just after running these three commands. Okay, going to localhost 8000. Can you see it? Yeah. Okay. Then we have, may I try to make it a little bit bigger? Okay, this is the structure of a Gatsby project. Okay, we have a lot of, we had some directories here on the first level of the root, and it's the cache that is like hidden, and is where it caches all the stuff that it needs to work. The plugins directory, that is where it puts all the plugins, or we can add custom plugins. The public directory, that is where the final files, once we end developing, we generate the static files to publish, and they go into this directory. Then there is the SRC, the source directory, where we have two main directories that are pages, where we put the pages files, and templates, where we put the templates file that generates more pages or nodes. Then we have we have the static directory, and then some configuration file. That is where we go tweaking all the things that we want to configure in Gatsby. Actually, I want to remember that Gatsby projects are React apps, so it's normal to find organization patterns like folders called components, and inside that, like starting to create more directories and organizing components, and utils inside SRC or source. Okay, it's common to find when you find a Gatsby advanced developed application, you can find the stuff in order in this way. Okay, now we have our basic Gatsby site, and we want to integrate it with Drupal. to integrate it with Drupal, we have to add a plugin. We saw the directory plugin. We have to add the Gatsby source Drupal plugin. So it's a npm package. So we install as usual with npm install Gatsby source Drupal. We have our plugin installed in our application. We have to add some configuration code that is like saying our Gatsby application that we are fetching data from this URL. Can you see that? That's worse than before. Okay, this is the URL, the basic URL where our endpoint is, and then the endpoint, the actual endpoint that we specify. If you don't change anything, the default endpoint from Drupal is JSON API. So it's like our URL and JSON API. And as we seen before, the data is coming over on this endpoint. Once we get the data out of Drupal and we put in connection with Gatsby, we have a tool that is GraphQL, that is like an in-browser IDE for writing and validating and testing GraphQL queries. So if we go to the GraphQL interface, we can see how it works. And this is like to test our queries. And we can find here all the data that in this moment our GraphQL point is receiving. So I started here to look for our node article data. So I started with all node articles, and when I start writing something, like here we have ages and nodes, because in GraphQL every point are like ages, and this is a GraphQL stuff, I'm not going too much into it. But once we reach the node that we find our nodes, we can have some options here, like this. We have a pop-up where we can select all the options that we have at this point of the query. So we can go looking, for example, for line code, and we have the line code. We can look for relationships or path. All the fields that we are available at this point, we can find it with the GraphQL. So it's a very powerful tool, and it helps us to make our query as we want it. Okay, here. So at this point, we have the data from Drupal, and we have to show it. The first thing that we can do is like create a page. We create a empty page at this point. It's just if you know React, you can recognize just a basic structure of the component of React component. We import React, and then with a basic component, we just create our first page. Okay, this is going to show only these 2 lines of text, but it creates a whole page at the URL blog that is the same of the name that we give here. So one of the useful things of Gatsby is that just to create a page, we add some React component here in the folder pages, and the name is going to be the URL of our page. Okay, so we have a basic page with no content more than these 2 lines, and now we want the data from Drupal. So we import GraphQL from Gatsby, okay, in the imports at the beginning of the file. And then we pass data to the component, okay? So, okay, so we are calling, here we have data, and here is the query that we tested in our GraphQL interface. So through testing or what we need or what we don't need in our query, we take our data and we create the query here. So at this point, data is going to contain all this data. And okay, this is a quite simple query. We are only looking for the title, the created data, the alias, the body, etc. Then here we have the relationships. where we find the field tags, for example, and the name of the tag, and we can list all the tags that our article may have. And in the relationships, there's the image world too. Why world? Because the images in Gatsby it's a quite complex topic to manage, because it's not as easy as import the image and show it. It's just try to optimize them so we can import them as a static file, but the main thing is like optimize them for different resolutions and different situations. So Gatsby includes a plugin that is called Gatsby Image that contains a lot of functions to manage our pictures. So it may have fixed size, fluid size for responsive needs, and a different way. So we have to follow a specific syntax just to take out the picture. So this is the other part of the query that didn't fit here, and we go on. Okay, so the final result of this is this code here, where we added some more. Wow. Oh, okay, it's easier. Okay, so this contains some more components, but it's pretty much the same. We imported React, we imported GraphQL, and then we imported images for the image stuff that I was telling before. And now we have data here, and when we call the data, it is like digging into the data object. So it's data.onAidArticle, dot edges, and we go on until we find what we need. And this is the query that we put at the end. Okay.
Can you increase the text, please? Can you increase the text?
Increase more?
Yeah.
Can you see it? Oh. I don't think. Is it better like this? Yeah? Okay, so I repeat. This is the React, the GraphQL, and the data object here. And as you can see, it's like this is the JSX syntax. If you know React, you understand. It's like a mixing like JavaScript and HTML syntax, and this is our template. Okay, so where is? Okay, so we have our page where we list our documents, our blog posts, and it started looking like this. Okay, so we have the same content that we can find here. For example, with this query, we will find the title, consequetur loquor, abigo axi. This is like, the module devil used to create stuff like this. And we have the same content here. Okay, with our image, our tags, and all the stuff. But now we are only showing a list of pages. We have not created our pages, our node post pages, so one page or one node for every article. So we're going to do this. At this point, we have to do something more. We have to add to Gatsby node.js, that is one of the configuration files we have here. I don't know if it's easy to read, but it's like gatsby-node.js. We have to add the two-part, some code that is like, because when we have to generate dynamically some pages, we need a URL for every page. So we have to generate this URL like dynamically, and we take the title of the article to generate it. So we use the module transliteration. That is a module that we have to add in a second moment, or we have to install it before adding this code. It's like an npm package. Once we have this, we create logic here just to create a new field with the title, transliteration of the title into a slug, into a URL. And then in this second part, we have the create page part, where we basically add the field and generate with the create page function here, we generate adding a path, a component. The component is the template we're going to use, and we add the slug. That is the URL of our page. So in the end, once we have done this, we need to add the code for the template of our blog post. And the template is, like always, a basic component. If we can see, it remembers the one we see before with the blog page. I can find this, okay. So it's the same, but this time we created it in the templates folder or directory. So we have the blog post file. It's always the same. We create a component, we import GraphQL, we pass the data object, and then I've lost the page. Okay, sorry. Okay, and then here it's the same. We do a query to GraphQL. This is a little bit more elaborated. We have put filters and some kind of filter. Sometimes we are playing with all the possibilities the GraphQL offer. And once we have our data, we go to pass our data into our template. So for every article, we take the title, we take the image, we take the tags, and Gatsby is gonna take control of generating the pages for us. So now it's all this stuff was already done. So you can see here we have the link to the page, and at this point we can see our pages generated. Okay, so this is the second one, and so on. One of the good things of Gatsby is because we are going to structure this stuff. We have the links on the page and all this stuff. But sometimes just to see all the pages that we have generated already is as easy as like typing a non-existent page that we already know that is not non-existent, and in the development environment is going to list us all the pages that we already have. This can be a long list, but right now we can see that on the blog path we have these three that are our 3 articles, and then the blog page, the page 2, and the 404. So we can get back to the blog, and now it's time to deploy.
Okay, so that's it. We already have our Gatsby blog website connected to Drupal, fetching data from GraphQL, and we are ready. We can already publish it if you are happy with our template in Gatsby. So publish is easy as to just run Gatsby build. Gatsby build is going to process all our files, all our data, all our content, and it's going to build the statics files for our static website. Once it's done, in the public folder of our project, we are going to find everything we need to host on our web server or whatever service we want to use. We just need a basic web server that can run HTML, and that's it. So here we have some resources. You can find, on the Gatsby website, you can find a lot of documentation also related to Drupal as a starting point. Then in these 2 repositories, you can find this presentation, and actually the second one is the code that we developed for our blog post that we just showed. This presentation was also made in GatsbyJS. So the second repository of the presentation is a GatsbyJS presentation. It's not connected to Drupal. It's just a static Gatsby website, but it was really interesting to use Gatsby to actually build this presentation. And I think we're done. Question and answer? Yeah.
What about user creation or similar?
Sorry?
What about user creation for Drupal or similar? Is there a way or?
Yeah. Through GraphQL you can do whatever you want, and through JSON API. GraphQL is more made, let's say, to fetch data instead to write data, because you can write data with GraphQL, but it's kind of slow, especially in when you have to run a lot of stuff. But you have a React application, so you can use GraphQL to write, or you can use a simple you have JSON API on the other side. You can use a simple HTTP request like you do on React. So it's on your choice. But you can do everything you can do on React, you can do on Gatsby. Let's say the GraphQL part for us, we more focused and investigated on the fetching data part. Because then when a website is too much dynamics, then it's where maybe you don't want to really use Gatsby. Maybe you would prefer a pure React application. But that's why we presented a blog website, because let's say Gatsby is more focused to build a static website with the static contents. When you have to do all this kind of iteration, maybe it's better to look at React application or something like that than Gatsby. But you can do it anyway, because we are also using Gatsby for more complex application. But when we go on the complex part, we go on pure React, let's say. And then we use Gatsby for all the presentation of the contents and all of that. But you can do whatever you want. Again, I don't suggest to use GraphQL for deep writing on the database, but it's your choice. Maybe you make some tests and you can find on yourself what's best for you. Okay. Yeah.
You show us for page when a page is not reachable and you invent a page, right? URL. But what if I want to hide some URL?
But that's just for development. You're going to see that only on your development environment. Of course, when you are public, when you are online with the build, that page is going to be a normal 404 page without any link. There is you can edit the 404 file, and you can do whatever you want in there. You can hide all of them, or you can put all the logic you want in it. Yeah. It's just a JS file that there is a template in it that for default has all this link. You can get rid of it. You can do whatever you want. Something else?
With this end result will be JavaScript.
What is it like?
This end result, is it like JavaScript based, or is it
It's JavaScript ES6. Yeah. So once you know JavaScript ES6, you can already start with it.
I mean, if you join off JavaScript, then your page will work.
You mean normal JavaScript?
Yeah.
It's mainly HTML and CSS, but it has JavaScript. It has JavaScript. It includes JavaScript.
Okay. So it will use this React for frontend later too.
Yeah. So and everything is based on JavaScript ES6. So it's ES6. So you have to use JavaScript ES6, of course. Or you can also use TypeScript if you want. You have to integrate some plugin for it. But the basic is JavaScript ES6. Yeah. Something else? Okay. So we're done. Thank you.